The letter came on a gray morning. It said one line. You were chosen to hear the Friday confessions at St. Icarus. That name stopped me cold. St. Icarus, the church that burned down in Maine when I was a boy. The same place my father, Patrick, had served before the fire took him, or whatever the fire really was. The paper smelled like ash. When I turned it over, I saw my name written small in the corner. Not Father, just Alaric. I left the priesthood years ago. No ceremony, no goodbye. My collar still sits in a drawer in Boston, stiff with dust, but that one line pulled at me. Guilt, maybe. Curiosity, maybe. Faith that refused to stay dead. By dusk I was already on the road. The sky hung low, metal gray. The forest swallowed my headlights. Pines leaned inward, ribs closing over the path. Each mile felt like driving deeper into something that had been waiting too long. When I found the turnoff, the radio was gone to static. My phone died seconds later. A wooden sign leaned in the ditch, half buried in moss. St. Icarus Parish. Only the first half of the name was still visible. The dirt road narrowed until it wasn't a road at all. I killed the engine and listened. No birds, no wind, just silence heavy enough to hear my heart beat. The church stood between the trees, half sunken, half standing. The bell tower leaned east. The cross on top was black with soot. Candles lined the path to the door, dozens of them. Each flame burned still. No flicker, no melt. Wax frozen mid-drip. I remember thinking someone had to be alive to light them. The door opened before I touched it. Wood breathed out dust and smoke. Inside, hundreds of candles burned low. The smell of incense and wax clung to the air, sweet but sour, like memory turned bad. Voices moved near the altar, low, steady, more vibration than words. I followed. 3 figures waited there. 2 men, 1 woman, all in black. The taller man turned first. His smile was slow, deliberate, like his face had forgotten how. "Welcome," he said. The sound cracked at the end, the way wood cracks in heat. I nodded. "The letter," I said, though I already knew the answer. The shorter man stepped forward instead, softer voice, tired eyes. "I'm Father Cillian," he said. "This is Father Dorian and Sister Erin." The woman bowed slightly, hands wrapped tight around a rosary. She did not look at me. I stopped halfway. The title Father felt wrong now. "Alaric," Cillian smiled faintly. "Then you are the one we have been waiting for." He motioned to a small table beside the pews. A single candle burned there beside a folded sheet of paper and a brass key. "Read this before the hour," Dorian said. His voice was dry, almost dust. "Obedience keeps the seal unbroken." The word seal hung in the air, heavy and wrong. Before I could ask, he had already turned away. The parchment smelled faintly of smoke. The key was warm. I slipped both into my coat and sat near the front. The pew groaned beneath me, sound stretching through the rafters. Sister Erin moved through the rows, trimming wicks with small scissors. Each snip made the flames flare and shrink. Wax hissed as it hit the floor. Her shadow bent the wrong way. The air thickened. I could taste the ash in it. Dorian whispered a prayer I did not know, each word sinking like a nail. I caught myself answering the rhythm, half breath, half habit. Then the bell above moaned, once, twice, 3 times. The sound rolled through the wood and into my ribs. Midnight. Every candle trembled, then steadied again. Cillian lifted a hand toward the confession booth in the corner. The curtain inside hung heavy, black, still. I walked toward it. My boots made no sound on the stone. The seat inside was smooth, untouched by time. I could smell pine, wax, and something faintly metallic beneath it. I sat. The air thinned. From the other side of the booth came a breath, not loud, just there, waiting. The breath faded. Silence took its place. The candle outside the booth wavered once, then froze again. The flame leaned toward the curtain, as if waiting too. I reached into my coat and pulled out the parchment. The paper was warm. It smelled faintly of smoke and iron, ink pressed deep into the fibers, black with a red tint underneath. It looked like it had been written by someone who wanted the words to bleed. There were 6 of them, 6 rules, no title, no blessing, just the words. Rule 1. When the bell rings 3 times, open the curtain. Rule 2. Do not interrupt the confession, no matter what you hear. Rule 3. If the voice begins to cry, say 1 prayer for mercy. Rule 4. If the confessor says they have seen him, leave the booth immediately. Rule 5. Do not step outside before the last candle burns out. Rule 6. Never confess your own sins after the Mass. I read them twice. The ink seemed to pulse. For a second, I thought I heard a whisper under the words, like a second voice reading with me. The wood creaked behind the curtain. Soft, close, a man's breath steady but wrong, not from lungs, from something else. Forgive me, Father. The sound slid through the small window between us, low, careful, too calm. I froze. My hands went cold. The rules spun through my head. Do not interrupt. The voice went on. I have come to confess. The air changed. Each word made it colder. My breath fogged in front of me. The candlelight on my side dimmed, stretched long shadows across the wall. He spoke about a woman he had hurt. No names, no dates. Just what he had done. Slow, exact, like listing inventory. I could hear something behind his voice, a scraping, metal on stone. The sound got louder each time he said the word, forgive. My stomach turned. The smell of iron grew stronger. I gripped the edge of the bench to keep from shaking. Then his tone shifted. Softer. Almost kind. She said he was watching, the voice murmured, but I told her he would never come for me. I felt the room breathe, not the air, the wood, the stone, the fire itself. Something old was listening. The voice sighed. Still, I saw him that night. He stood by the river. His robe was clean. His eyes were... He stopped. The next inhale came sharp. I have seen him. The words cut through the booth like a blade. Rule 4. Leave immediately. I reached for the curtain. My hand shook. The wood under me trembled once, like something shifting inside the floor. I pulled the curtain halfway open, and the candle went out. Dark, complete. No sound but the heartbeat in my ears, then a whisper, close enough to touch. Do you believe in what you cannot see? The voice was everywhere, behind me, above me, inside my teeth. Every breath I took sounded like his. The booth shook once, the wood flexing as if someone had pressed against it from the other side. Then silence again. I stayed still, eyes open, blind anyway. A minute, maybe 2. The air warmed just slightly. When the candle flicked back to life, the other side was empty. No shadow, no shape. Only the faint sound of water dripping where there should not be water. I stood up. The parchment lay open on the bench. The ink darker now, fresh, each rule still there. But at the bottom, a single new line written in wet red. Keep listening. The bell above the church gave a low groan, metal grinding against age. Dust fell in thin streams. The sound crawled through the rafters and settled behind my ribs. I looked toward the altar. Cillian and Dorian were standing there again, too still. Watching me from across the pews, Aaron was nowhere to be seen. I tried to speak. My throat made no sound. Then the bell struck once more. Not 3, not 4, just 1, enough to shake the wax from every candle in the room. That single bell had followed me all week. It came in dreams, one note repeating until I woke. The next Friday came like nothing had changed. Same road, same forest, same silence waiting behind the trees. But something in me had shifted. I was not afraid anymore. Just hollow. The candles along the path were already lit when I arrived. They never burned down. The wax froze halfway to the ground, like time had stopped mid-drip. When I pushed the door, it moved without a sound. The smell of incense hit first, sweet and rotting. The air inside hummed like a throat clearing itself. Cillian stood by the altar polishing the brass cup again. Dorian's lips moved in pressure, but no words came out. Aaron was kneeling in the corner, head down, hands folded. None of them looked up when I passed. I took my seat inside the booth. The wood remembered my weight. It sighed under me like it had been waiting all week. The first breath came almost before I exhaled, low, human enough to fool the ear. "Forgive me, Father." Male voice, rough, not young, the kind of voice that had been broken by shouting. "It has been a long time," he said. I stayed silent. "Rule 2, do not interrupt." He began to speak. "I killed men once, many. The ground was white that morning. Snow or ash, I could not tell. When it ended, they were gone. I counted 12, then 7 more. I remember the way their eyes froze before the rest of them did. The booth filled with the smell of gunpowder. I could taste metal at the back of my throat. Each word he spoke landed heavy like the sound of boots in snow. He paused, then laughed. It was dry, empty. "I thought I saw him that day," he said, when the smoke cleared, standing right beside me. The words hit hard. Rule 4. If the confessor says they have seen him, leave the booth immediately. I should have moved. I did not. The air pressed tight around me. The candle outside bent, flame reaching toward the wall like it wanted to escape. The man's breath grew louder, slow, deliberate. I could hear teeth click between syllables. "I saw him," he whispered again. Not a vision, not a thought. He looked at me, Father, right at me. My spine locked. Cold crept up my arms. The bench beneath me vibrated once. Wood or bone, I could not tell. I stood, half-turned, fingers brushing the curtain. Then he spoke again, closer now. "Do you know what he said?" The voice came from right behind the screen. Too near, too clear. I pulled the curtain open. Nothing. The other seat was empty, but the smell of smoke rolled in thick and sweet, like breath from a furnace. The bell above the church groaned once, then again, then a third time. It should have stopped there. It did not. A fourth strike hit, deep and wet, like something underwater trying to scream. Every candle along the wall burst at once. Wax splattered the wood hot against my skin. The flame didn't die. It scattered, glowing red inside the smoke. I stumbled out of the booth. The room tilted, the air humming with a sound too low to hear but strong enough to shake my ribs. Aaron was standing at the altar now, hands lifted, mouth open in silent prayer. Behind her, the crucifix cracked. A thin line split the wood from shoulder to hip. Something dark began to run down from the wound. At first I thought it was wax. It wasn't. The smell of iron hit before I saw the color. Blood crawled along the carving, slow and steady, dripping onto the stone. Each drop landed with a sound, soft, measured like a heartbeat outside a body. The bell stopped. The sound kept going. Drip, drip, drip. I could not move. The air itself was shaking. Then all at once, silence again. Candles dead. Smoke hanging still in the air. The last drop fell, and the light caught it before it hit the floor. Red, bright as fire, then gone. The next night the church felt smaller. The air inside held its breath. The candles had not moved, same height, same stillness. I sat in the booth before the bell. The wood was colder now, damp through my sleeves. I waited for the breath, for the voice. Nothing. Then I heard it. "Forgive me, Father." My chest tightened, same words, same tone. But it was my voice. Not close, not far, just right across from me, speaking through the thin wall of wood. "I have sinned," it said. "I stayed when I should have left. I broke a rule meant to keep me safe." I froze. Every word that came next was mine. same rhythm, same hesitation. It was like listening to a recording of my own thoughts. I heard the bell, it went on, and I did not run. The sound doubled, faint echo bouncing behind my skull. It was coming from the booth, and from inside my head. I reached for the curtain, fingers shaking. The flame outside flickered blue. The air filled with the smell of wet stone. The voice kept talking, still mine, still calm. I watched the blood fall. I watched it move. I whispered, "Stop." The voice whispered too, at the exact same time. My throat went dry. Sweat slid down my spine. The bench under me pulsed once, like a slow heartbeat. Then silence. I opened the curtain. No one there. The other seat empty. The air inside the booth trembled like heat above asphalt. When I stepped out, Cillian was standing by the altar, Dorian beside him. Both turned toward me like they had been waiting. Cillian spoke first. "The dead repeat what they wish they could forget." His words landed flat, rehearsed. I wanted to ask what that meant, but my mouth would not move. Dorian's eyes were gray again, too pale for life. He said softly, "Do not answer what is not meant for you." Then both men turned back to the altar. Their footsteps made no sound. I stared at the floor where they had walked. No dust had shifted, no marks left behind. Something inside me started to shake. If they were real, they should make noise. They should breathe. But the church had no air left to give. I looked toward the wall near the confessional. A cracked mirror hung there, half covered in soot. The glass was cloudy, edges warped by heat. Still, I could make out shapes. The three of them, Dorian, Cillian, and Sister Erin, stood behind me in the reflection, still, unmoving, but the reflections did not follow their bodies. When Dorian turned, his mirrored face stayed facing forward. When Cillian lifted his hand, the reflection's arm hung limp. I blinked. Once. Twice. The reflection of Sister Erin smiled. Her real face did not. The air thickened. Every candle leaned toward the mirror, flames bending in one direction, as if the glass was pulling the light in. I stepped closer. My own reflection appeared between theirs, faint at first, then clear. I looked older, tired, eyes sunken. The reflections of the priests moved closer to mine, even though they hadn't moved at all in the room, their faces pressed near the glass, edges warping with the heat. Dorian's reflection whispered something. I heard it behind me. But when I turned, he was still by the altar, silent. Cillian's reflection leaned forward and spoke with my own voice. "You should not have stayed." The glass cracked, a single thin line running from top to bottom. The sound was sharp, dry, final. The candles all went out at once. The darkness felt alive, pressing against my skin. I turned toward the altar. The space was empty. The robes, the candles, the pews, still there. But they were gone. No Dorian, no Cillian, no Erin, only the sound of the mirror cooling behind me. Tiny pops of glass settling, and my breath shaking in the dark. The night after the mirror, I did not plan to return, but I did. Something in me kept time with the bell now, like my heart had learned its rhythm. Erin was there again, as if she had never left. The church waited. The candles lit themselves, I think. No one else could have. Their light was wrong, too still, too clean. The air carried that same low hum, deep enough to feel in my ribs. I stepped down the aisle. The floor gave a faint breath under each foot. Then I stopped. The altar was glowing, not bright, soft, steady, gold leaking through stone. And in front of it, people. Dozens of them, heads bowed, hands clasped tight to chests, all kneeling on the cold floor between pews. No sound, no whisper, not even the crack of a knee on wood. Just that hum rising slow like a choir buried under dirt. Their clothes were wrong. Old wool, lace uniforms, hospital gowns, faces half melted by smoke, some eyes open, some gone. I tried to speak, but my throat held shut, breath stuck halfway out. Dorian moved through them, calm, measured. Each step fell without noise. He reached the altar and turned to face the crowd. His eyes caught the candlelight, pale and steady. "The living serve," he said. His voice filled the church, flat but enormous. "The dead confess." Every head in the room lifted at once, dozens of blank faces staring forward, mouths closed, eyes shining wet with candlelight. Cillian stood beside Dorian, holding the brass cup. Erin followed, trailed by smoke that curled from her sleeves like breath. I realized then, this was not a mass for the living. This was for them, for all of them, a congregation that had forgotten it was dead. Dorian raised his hand. The crowd lowered theirs. He began a prayer, I think. The words were old, tangled, not Latin, not English. Still, I understood the shape of them: confession, pain, release. The air thickened until it shook. The walls groaned as if remembering. Then one figure stood among the kneeling crowd, a woman in a torn blue dress, hair scorched short, hands trembling. She moved toward the altar, bare feet sliding on stone. Her eyes stayed down. Her lips moved soundlessly at first, then caught a voice. "Mercy for the burned," she said. Her voice cracked open halfway through the word mercy. Dorian turned his gaze to her. Cillian lifted the cup higher. Erin whispered something behind him, too quiet to catch. The woman's knees hit the step below the altar. Smoke rose from her skin where it touched the stone. She did not flinch. "Mercy for the burned," she said again. Then a third time, louder. The last syllable tore apart like fabric catching fire. The air collapsed inward. The candles bent low. Flame leaned sideways, pulled toward her voice. Dorian spoke again, louder now. "Mercy is for those who still bleed." The woman's mouth fell open. No sound came out, only light, thin, white, and shaking, pouring from her throat like dust. The crowd of ghosts moved with her, heads swayed, bodies rocking in rhythm, but no one made a sound. Every movement matched, slow and dreamlike. I took a step back. The air hit me like water. Cold and heavy, my vision swam. Dorian turned to face the pews. His eyes found mine. "You hear because you still can," he said. I blinked. The next moment he was gone. All of them were. The church stayed full but empty. Rows of kneeling shapes without shadow, a choir without sound. Then came the voices, all at once. Every mouth opened, not breathing, just sound, a single note that grew and split into hundreds. Not English, not words, something older. The sound filled my head until it drowned the air. Every candle burst at the same time. Glass shattered from the windows. Darkness dropped like a curtain. The voices kept going for a heartbeat, then stopped, leaving only the echo, soft, fading like the ocean inside a shell. And I was alone again. The night after the silent mass, I searched for proof. Something solid, something alive. The church had doors I had not opened yet, hallways that led nowhere, rooms that waited for hands long gone. I carried one candle with me. Its flame leaned backward as I walked, like it wanted to go home. The hall behind the altar led down a narrow stair, stone walls wet to the touch. The air thinned the lower I went, colder, heavier, like breathing through dust. At the bottom sat a door half rotten, iron hinges streaked with rust. The key Dorian had given me fit too well. When I turned it, the sound echoed up the stair like metal screaming. Inside was a small room. No pews, no cross, only shelves stacked with files and glass jars sealed in wax. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, flickering like a heartbeat. The smell hit first. Old paper, smoke, and the faint sweetness of rot. I moved through the shelves, every folder marked by year, 1959, 1960, 1961. Then 1963. The air changed when I touched it. Dust shifted. The bulb dimmed. Inside the folder was a photograph. 4 figures standing before this very altar. Father Dorian, Father Cillian, sister Erin, and the last, the one in front, my father, Patrick. Younger than I remembered, eyes the same, hands clasped behind his back, collar straight, face calm. Beneath the photo, written in thick black ink, Guardians of the Seal. The edges of the page were scorched. A ring of soot framed the words as if the fire itself had signed it. I stared until the letters blurred. The room began to breathe. Shelves groaned. Files rustled though there was no wind. The bulb swung once, slow, like something had brushed past it. The story started to fit together in my head, piece by piece. They had died in the fire, all three of them, maybe the whole parish. And my father, he must have stayed behind to seal whatever was inside the confessional. That breath, that voice, the one that called itself confessor. The realization crawled through me like cold water. The rules were not just warnings, they were chains. And I, his son, the last of his blood, had been called to keep them, to hold what he held, to finish what the dead could no longer finish. I sat down on the cold floor. The candle guttered low. The wax burned my knuckles, but I did not move. On the wall beside me, another photograph hung crooked. It was almost the same image, but older, faded. This time my father stood alone in front of the booth. His hand rested on the wood, head bowed. Something dark showed through the lattice behind him, faint outline of a figure leaning close. I looked away. When I turned back, the shadow in the photo had moved, closer, almost touching him. The air buzzed. The bulb flickered twice, then steadied. A voice rose through the draft, faint but clear. "Do not let the chain break." My father's voice. I knew it. I stood fast, candle trembling in my hand. The flame stretched toward the door, as if drawn by the sound. "Father?" I whispered. Only the echo answered, my own word bending back at me. "Do not let the chain break." It came again, louder this time, woven through the hum of the light. The shelves shook. Files spilled open, pages lifting in the air like wings. Each page bore the same black symbol, the cross inside a circle. The mark burned onto the confessional door upstairs. The light snapped once, then out. Darkness filled the room, thick and absolute. I could still hear the pages fluttering, still hear his voice buried inside the wind. "Do not let the chain break." Then silence. Only the smell of smoke and the sound of the chain on the door above tightening itself shut. I did not sleep after finding the record. Every sound in the dark carried his voice. Every breath felt borrowed. When the next Friday came, I was already there. The church door stood open, waiting. The candles lit one by one as I walked inside. Their flames leaned toward the booth, as if something had been waiting longer than me. I sat without thinking. The wood was warm this time, not from fire, something slower, something alive. For a while there was only the tick of wax, the low groan of the tower above. Then a new voice spoke, younger. Steady, too calm to belong here. "Forgive me, Father," he said, polite, soft. "I have come to make peace." I felt my jaw tighten. The sound of his breath carried no rhythm, not human. Still it felt close, like he was leaning near the grate, smiling through it. "How long since your last confession?" I asked. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. He exhaled, slow. "Long enough to forget why it matters." Rule 2, do not interrupt. So I listened. "I was a builder once," he said. "I built houses, roads, even churches. People prayed inside walls I raised, but they never prayed for me." The tone was easy, conversational, like a man remembering better days. "Then I learned something," he continued. "Faith is a fire that needs to burn, or it rots. I lit the fire to cleanse what faith could not." My chest went cold. The room did not move. But the air felt wrong. Pulled sideways. "What fire?" I whispered before I could stop myself. He paused, almost amused. "The one your father tried to put out." The words slid through the wood like heat through glass. I pressed my hand against the booth wall. It trembled, slow and steady, as if breathing with him. "You are Calder," I said before I knew why. The name left my mouth like it had been waiting behind my teeth. He chuckled softly. "I wondered if he told you my name." His tone was gentle, almost kind. Then it shifted, just enough to scrape. "Your father was a devoted man," he said. "He gave everything to his God, even his own blood." The sound bent. Another voice spoke beneath his, then another, rising and falling together, a dozen mouths sharing the same breath. "He sealed me with it." My candle snapped. Wax spilled onto my hand, burning the skin. I didn't move. The voices wove through each other, male, female, child, each one saying my name. Alaric, whispered, hummed, smiled. The booth grew hotter by the second. Smoke slid up from the cracks in the wood. I tried to stand, but the seat held me down like a hand on my chest. He laughed softly. The sound didn't echo. It folded inward, as if the air was eating it. "Your father thought he could hold me forever," Calder said. "Chains rust, seals fade, blood dries." My throat locked. The world tilted. Each breath came with the taste of ash. "Do you know what he said before he died?" I did not answer. The whisper came anyway, right behind my ear this time. He begged me not to call his son. The wood beside my face began to glow, faint red spreading like breath under skin. I pushed against the door. It would not open. The sound of his voice filled the booth, not from one place, but from all of them. "Now you are here. His blood, his chain, his prayer." The heat rose until the walls hummed. Every knot in the wood turned bright, pulsing like coals in a forge. I covered my face. The candle melted in my hand. The air bent. The voice laughed again, sharp and bright, before breaking into a dozen others. Then silence. A silence so heavy it crushed the heat out of the air. When I looked up, the curtain in front of me had changed color. No longer black. Red, deep and glowing, the color of iron before it cools. It breathed once, then stopped. I remember the sound before the light. The bell above the tower screamed once, then again, then kept ringing. Not in rhythm. Wild. Like it was being shaken by a storm that hadn't started yet. Every candle in the church flared at once. White light first, then gold, then red. Wax hissed and poured down the walls like rain made of fire. I stumbled out of the booth. The air burned my throat. Smoke twisted through the pews, shaping faces that disappeared when I blinked. Cillian and Dorian were already on their knees before the altar. Hands locked together, heads bowed. Their voices moved as one. "Faith keeps the seal closed." Again, louder. "Faith keeps the seal closed." The words hit like waves, shaking the floorboards, rattling the glass in the windows. Erin ran from the side door, robes trailing flame. Her voice cut through the noise. "He is waking!" The stone under the booth cracked open with a sound like bone splitting. Heat poured up through the gap, wet living heat. I turned. Smoke gathered above the confessional, thick, black, breathing smoke. Inside it, a shape began to take form, half human, half ash. Bones glowing faint red beneath the surface, like embers trapped in skin. The smoke folded around it, stretching into shoulders, a head, hands that were not hands. Calder. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "You prayed too long," he said. The words vibrated through the floor. "Chains break when no one listens." Cillian pushed himself upright. His eyes were white now, burning from the inside. He pressed both palms to the door. Ash ran down his arms like sleeves dissolving. "Stay back," he shouted. The sound tore his throat. "Faith keeps the seal closed," Calder laughed. A sound made of many mouths at once. The bell above cracked on the next strike. Cillian's body burst into light, then into dust. He fell against the door, turning to gray smoke before he hit the ground. The wood sealed shut with a hiss. Aaron screamed his name. Dorian pulled her away, voice breaking into prayer. "Do not stop," he told me. His hands shook as he pressed something into mine, a small silver cross blackened at the edges. "My father's," I said. He nodded once. "You must finish what he started." The floor split wider. A circle burned open around the confessional, red symbols crawling along the stone like living veins. The air pulsed. Heat and cold fought in the same breath. Calder stepped through the smoke. His shape was almost human now, but his face, no eyes, no mouth, only a hollow light that moved when he spoke. "Blood sealed me once," he said. "Blood will open me again." The cross in my hand grew hot, metal searing into my palm until I smelled my own skin burning. Dorian's voice rose behind me, words I did not understand, fragments of a language that bled. Calder turned toward him. The light in his face flared white. The next moment Dorian was gone. A column of flame took his place. Ash fell like snow. I dropped to my knees. The cross burned brighter, the heat running up my arm. The sigil on the floor began to spin, slow first, then faster. Each symbol ignited, feeding on the blood dripping from my hand. The sound became unbearable, 1,000 bells ringing inside my head. Calder screamed or maybe laughed. It was the same sound now. I pressed the cross to the floor. Light tore through the cracks. The stone hissed like flesh. Smoke turned white and then gold, then vanished. The air went still. Every candle flickered once, then steadied. The bell stopped mid-swing. The light never touched me. It moved around as if it knew my blood. I was alone at the altar. Only dust where Cillian had knelt. Only silence where Dorian had spoken. The cross lay black in my hand. Blood from my palm slid down its edge, falling one drop at a time into the center of the burned circle. Each drop hissed on the stone. Each one sank faster than it should. When the last fell, the floor glowed faint red again. Then went dark. And somewhere deep below the church, something exhaled. The candles burst one by one. Flames crawled sideways, bending toward the confessional where the seal still smoked. The air filled with dust and ash that did not fall. It hung, waiting. Then came the sound. Low, steady. A pulse too slow to be a heartbeat. The bell above groaned once, its metal twisting. The tower shook dust from the ceiling. I covered my head as the rafters cracked. Calder stepped forward through the haze. The red inside his skin had grown brighter. Each movement shed flakes of ash that hissed when they touched the ground. His face burned without fire, just light, wrong, and alive. "You cannot hold me," he said. Every word arrived twice, the second echo higher, inhuman. "This place is mine again." I tried to speak, but my mouth was full of smoke. The cross in my hand pulsed once, dim white under the soot. My father's blood still marked the edges. I forced my voice out. "Our Father, who art in heaven—" The words twisted as they left my mouth. Half of them came back broken, reversed, bent into sounds that hurt to hear. The prayer shook apart in the air before it could reach the ceiling. Calder smiled. Or maybe the light in his face flickered that way. "Faith cannot bind what faith created," he said. "Your father begged me to spare you. He traded his blood for your breath." The words struck deep, colder than the smoke. I saw it then, my father kneeling where I stood years ago, the same circle burning under him. His voice raw, his hands shaking, the same cross glowing in his grip, and Calder standing above him, calm, patient, smiling with a face made of ash. My chest collapsed around the thought. He had died to keep this thing asleep, and I had woken it. The seal cracked again. Lines of light shot from the circle, cutting across the pews, climbing the walls like veins on fire. The whole church began to turn white. Every sound melted into one long note. I fell to my knees. The floor burned through my clothes. The cross seared my palm until the smell of blood filled the air again. I could not breathe. I could not think. Only one thought stayed: finish what he started. I lifted the cross high. My arms shook. My voice came out broken, but I spoke anyway. Not by my strength, Lord. The sound cut halfway, replaced by a scream that did not belong to me. Calder's voice folded inside it, furious, desperate, 100 others joining. I forced the words through it. But by yours. The light came from the cross first, white so bright it erased shape, then from the floor, the walls, the ceiling, everywhere the fire had touched. The air split open. The bell rang one final time, pure and perfect. Every window shattered inward. The force hit like breath from the sun. Calder's scream turned into wind, his body folded into light, limbs dissolving, ash sucked back into the cracks that had birthed him. The church roared as if it were alive, its beams and stones singing the same word again and again. Faith, faith, faith. The light swallowed everything. The floor disappeared beneath me. The sound became too big for the world to hold. I closed my eyes. The cross burned against my chest. The heat became weightless. Then silence. Pure, clean silence. When the light faded, I thought it was heaven. It was only dawn. The light broke with no sound. When I opened my eyes, the roof was gone. Only the frame of the church remained, black ribs against the morning sky. Smoke drifted through what was left of the windows. The pews were ash. The floor still burned in thin red veins that faded as I watched. I tried to move. The ground beneath me was warm, soft, almost breathing. I stood slow, every bone humming from what was left of the night. The air carried a taste of iron and pine. Above it, birds, their calls thin, careful, afraid to come closer. The confessional still stood somehow. The wood had blackened, but the shape was whole. I walked toward it. The door was open. Inside, nothing but smoke and silence. On the wall, a handprint, charred deep into the wood. 5 black fingers spread wide, burned in a single motion. My stomach turned. I touched it once, cold, completely cold. Beside it, the parchment lay half-burned across the bench. The same rules, edges curled, words still visible through the ash. 6 lines, and one more that hadn't been there before. Rule 7, never stop believing. The ink was still wet. I could smell it, sharp, metallic, almost sweet. I folded the page and slipped it into my coat. The cross was still in my hand. The metal no longer hot, only heavy. Outside, the trees swayed with the wind. Ash fell from the branches like gray snow. Each flake glowed faintly in the light before it touched the ground and died. I took one last look at what had been St. Icarus, only smoke, only stone, and a silence so deep it felt sacred. The forest opened as I walked. Each step pushed the air back into motion as if the world had been waiting for permission to breathe again. By the time I reached the road, the sun had cleared the fog. The sky burned gold, too bright to look at. My hands still shook, but they were steady enough to hold the cross without bleeding. Somewhere far behind me, the bell rang. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound carried through the trees, soft but clear. I stopped and listened. It came every Friday after that, always the same hour, always 3 times. No more, no less. People in town say the ruins are cursed, that no bird lands there, that at night the air smells like candle smoke and rain. I have never gone back, but I hear it still, the echo of prayer buried under the sound of fire. Sometimes, when the wind is right, I can almost make out the words. Faith keeps the seal closed. Faith keeps the seal closed. I no longer serve the church. Too much of it burned with the wood, but the faith, the part that survived the fire, still lives. It waits, it listens, and I serve that now. The quiet kind, the kind that stands even when the walls fall. The road bends out of the forest and into light. The wind lifts the ash into the air, turning it white before it vanishes. I keep walking. Behind me, the sound returns, a breath, close, familiar. It moves through the trees, faint, steady, like something remembering how to pray. Then silence again. Only the sound of my own steps and the soft hiss of white ash rising and falling with the wind.
Faith never dies. It only waits.